our shir on Shabbos afternoon. Previous shirim we're going to fill in the next couple of days to make sure that everybody is up to date. But we left off on Shabbos on Daf. We left off over here. Hold on a sec. There we go. We left off on Daf Vav Amud Beis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the top of the Amud, where the Gemara had just concluded to Yufta, and the next words are Va'ad She'atam Mafrisha, where the Gemara wants to know the following important question. Once we have concluded that the Kohen Gadol has to be separated from his wife in order to ensure that he doesn't accidentally become Tamei as a result of being an accidental Baal Nida, the Gemara wants to know, now once we've already been nervous enough to separate him from his wife because she might become a Nida while they are together, if we show mitumas meis, we should probably also keep him away from all other people in case somebody drops dead and it becomes a Tamei meis. That would also be a problem that would require him to be in a process of tahara for 7 days, which would take him past the finish line of Yom Kippur. He wouldn't be able to be the Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Tachlifa, says Rav Tachlifa, Avud Rav Huna, who is the father of Rav Huna, Mishmei Rava, all of this in the name of Rav Zoysa Meres. This is to say, Tumas Hameis Hutra Hi B'Tzibur. No. Tumas Meis is Hutra B'Tzibur. It must be that we're not concerned about Tumas Meis. Why? Because Tumas Meis is Hutra B'Tzibur, and this is going to be a big discussion that we're going to have over the next couple of dapim. Tumas Meis Hutra B'Tzibur. Tumas Meis is mutter, means that if he becomes Tamei, we don't care. Meaning, he shouldn't. We obviously don't want that to happen, but if he happens to be Tamei on Yom Kippur, that doesn't impede him from doing the avoda at all. Says the Gemara, Ravina says, now you could even say that even though Tumas Meis is not hutra, it's not mutter, it's techuya, it is permissible, meaning not that it's allowed completely, but that it's not going to hold back the avoda. B'diavad, we're going to see what the nafkaminas are, whether this is tuma hutra or techuya. Tuma dechuya b'tzibur, that argument exists, and we're going to define what these are in a moment. Tumas hameis lo shchicha. Tumas meis is not so regular. Tumas meis is not so regular. Tumas beis is shchicha, but the tuma that comes as a result of his wife being leader, that is common. That is more commonplace. The Ritva asks here, hold on a second. Tumas beis is shchicha. What's the case here? You have a guy, he's with the Kohen Gadol, he's with his wife intimately in bed, and then she becomes a nida, Safik Nida, while they are together. How often does that possibly happen? Says the Ritva, no, shchicha here doesn't mean a question of more high levels of regularity. It means that it is incredibly unlikely to be avoidable, in the sense that Tumas Meis is, by definition, considerably more avoidable. There are many more signs that somebody is about to die in front of you. And in that case, you'd be able to run away. You'd be able to get out of the room. Somebody looks like he's about to die. But if the Kohen Gadol would be with his wife, she doesn't know that she's about to become nida. If she did, then they shouldn't be together anyway. So that'd be a problem of vestos. You shouldn't be with her if she thinks she's about to become a nida. So it must be that this was a case that he had no way of knowing beforehand. That's what the shchicha here means. That's how the Ritva explains it. Okay, into the actual meat and potatoes of the sugya of Tumah Hutra or Tumah Duchiyah, says the Gemara as follows, Itmar. It was stated as follows. Tumas Hameis, with regards to Tumas Hameis, and we saw this in Maseches Psachim, Tumas Hameis, Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Nachman says, Hutra B'tzibur, it is permitted. It's in ganzen mutter. No problem with the B'tzibur. It's as if it didn't happen. But Rav Sheshes, Amar Rav Sheshes says, Duchiyah B'tzibur, it's suspended, it's not mutter. Suspended, meaning that the show goes on, but there's still a problem here. What's the nafkimina here? Says the Gemara, if they are tahor kahanim and tamei kahanim in the same base av, they're all part of the same family of kahanim that is doing the avoda at that point in time. Meaning, Every week, there's a different set of Kohanim that are doing the avoda, and the Kohanim of this base Av, some of them are Tameh, some of them are Tar. Everybody agrees, both Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshes agree, that the ones that are Tar are supposed to do the avoda, and Tamim loy avdi. The Tameh ones are not going to do the avoda. Ki pligi, what's the machlokes? La'aduri ve'asuye Tar mi base Av achrina. What happens if all of them became Tameh, or whatever it is? They were all sitting down and eating lunch, and one of them dies in the room while all of them are there, just chokes, dies, and now the whole base of is Tameh. So Rav Nachman says, Heter hi b'tzibur. It's mutter. It's mutter. The Kohanim that are on duty that afternoon, that evening, they got no problem. The next morning, off you go, no problem whatsoever. You don't go looking for other Kohanim. Rav Sheshes says, no, not true. You have to go and find other Kohanim. It's suspended. It's not mutter. All things being equal, you should go and find somebody else. You have to go and find other Kohanim. Ikda Amri, and there are those that explain that that's not the nafkamina here, but it's a little more subtle. Even if they are Tobei Kohanim and Tar Kohanim within that base up, within that group of Kohanim itself, Polig Rav Nachman. There's still machlokes. Rav Nachman disagrees and says, Avdei Nami Tmeim. The Tamei ones can do the avodah, meaning he holds it so completely mutter that the ones that are Tamei can do it. It doesn't make a difference at all. Says Rashi here, Bahau base Av means she'ovid ba'osa yom. The ones that are doing the avodah that day, the avdi timidim. The whole Yoma avabi shekorban sibur. Everybody agrees, meaning in the previous argument, everybody agrees that if it's a korban tzibur, you should have people that are tahar doing it. But Rav Nachman in the second rendition says even the Tamei people can do it. If it's a korban tzibur, you don't need tahar kohanim at all. Turning over the page to Zayin Amud Aleph. Why? What's his argument? Dechol tumas meis b'tzibur rachmana sharia. Any tumas meis with regards to a korban on the tzibur, the Torah says is mutter. Mutter completely. Rashi here says, how do we know this? Tichsev, the pasuk says, Ish ki yeh tameh lenefesh yaseh pesach sheni. Ish nidche lepesach sheni ve'en tzibur nidche. A singular person is pushed off to Pesach Sheni, but a tzibur is not. And this was the whole discussion we saw in Pesachim, that Tumah Hudra but tzibur, that's the right. Amr of Sheshes says from Sheshes, Mina aminillah. From where do I say my understanding of this halacha? My understanding of the halacha, that Tumah Duchuy but tzibur, the Tanya, because the Brisa tells us as follows. You have a kohen who's about to bring the korban omer. We're in the midst of Sfiras Omer at the moment, and you have a kohen that is about to bring the minchas omer, v'nitmes, and then he becomes tamei. And the omer became tamei in his hand. Omer, he says, he makes an announcement. We should bring another korban omer. Vim ein sham elahi. What happens if that's the only one available? Like we had seen in Shkalim. What happens if it was Shemitah year and you only had just enough to make one korban omer? Omer, they say to him, "Have a pikechu shtaik. Be smart and shh. Don't say anything. Be quiet. Be quiet." Meaning, don't make a big noise about this. Ktani mihad. Nevertheless, the Brisa is saying, Omer, he says, Umivin acheres tachta, that he still makes the announcement, we bring another one in its place. Why does he make such an announcement? Because obviously we want everybody to know that even though it's a korban ha'omer, which is a korban of the tzibur, even though it's a communal korban, we don't want people to think that it was brought in a state of tumah. Which means that Tumah is the Chuyev Tzibur. That's Rosh Hashem's point. The Tumah has to be the Chuyev Tzibur. Because if it would be Tumah Hudra Tzibur, why do you have to pretend like everything was Tahar? Meaning, you don't want the people to think that it was brought in a state of Tumah. Why not? It's Mutter. No, it must be that we don't want people to think that, because then they're going to think that the Korban Tzibur could be brought in a state of Tumah, and it should not. Amr of Nachman says of Nachman, no, Moedina, I agree with you in that case. Why do I agree with you in that case? Because the leftovers of that korban need to be eaten. And the halacha is that only korban Pesach is mutter to eat in a state of tumah, but all other korbanos can be brought in a state of tumah, no problem. Tumah, 100% says Rav Nachman. But they cannot be eaten in a state of tumah, and that's why we don't want people to think that it's mutter to bring a korban in a state of tumah, because then they're going to end up messing up the halacha. So that's why the kohen still has to make the announcement if people saw that it became tameh. If not, I suppose, have it pikach u'shtok, don't say anything if he sees that there's nothing else available. Now the Gemara asks another kasha against Rav Nachman. Meisive, they ask a kasha against Rav Nachman, hayamakriv mincha sparim ve'elim kvasim. If you have a kohen that's bringing a mincha of parim, that's cows, ve'elim and rams, ukvasim and sheep. You have a whole variety of the menachos of these korbanos. V'nitim is biyad, and those menachos became tameh. Omer, he says, he makes the announcement. Bring another one. Vim ein sham elahi, and what if there isn't another one available? Omer, they say, be quiet, shh, right, and be smart. My love, meaning, why? My love, parim ve'elim kvasim t'chag. It must be that we're talking about the parim, the cows, and the elim, the rams, the kvasim, the sheep t'chag of sukkahs. That's when you have all three of these korbanos. Amr l'char Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman, no. We're not talking about one day that you bring all three of these things. Look, the parim in this case is a par helam davar shel tzibur. It's a par of a avodah parim par avodah zara. There is a unique halacha in Bamidbar Tesvav that what happens if you have a whole tzibur that does something that they are accidentally in violation of a din of avodah zara. Rashi says par avodah zara to tzibur. Elohi utu'unen chasim be'shlach. Parsha Shlach, in Bamidbar Tesvav, there's such a thing called an olah, a par that's an olah that gets a mincha, which is a par helam davar shel tzibur. If everybody in the tzibur accidentally passed in the Sanhedrin passed the wrong halacha and said you're supposed to do a certain thing, and it turned out that was avodah zarah, bad thing, right? So that's the par that we're talking about here that has nechasim. Sorry, not nechasim, but nesachim has a nesach. It gets mincha brought along with it, and that's the case that we're talking about here. Af al gav de tzibur, even though it is a communal obligation, given the lekviyel zman, since it does not have a set time, ma'adrina, we would go back and get another mincha for that. We're going to see you need both a korban of the tzibur and kviyel zman. It has to have a specific time. Elim, what about elim? Rams. What rams are we talking about that get a mincha? That's the elim be'elim shel Aaron. That's the aisle that Aaron brings on Yom Kippur, the elim of the Kohen Gadol. The afal gav to kviyel zman, even though it does have a specific time, keva and the yachidu, since it is a individual korban, mehadrina, we go and we find a substitute for that. We go and get another one, because even though it is a kviyel zman, it doesn't have the status of a korban tzibur. And the kvasim is bekevas haba im ha'omer. The kevas is the one that we are referring to of the korban ha'omer that gets shirayim la'achila, that needs to be eaten. And if it needs to be eaten, then you don't say tumah hutra b'tzibur. Meisive. Now the Gemara asks another objection against Rav Nachman. Says the brayso as follows: the brayso that is in Psachim Tasayin. Dam shenitma, if you have blood that became tameh, v'zarka, and it got thrown on the mizbech, b'shogeg, accidentally, hurtza, it still works. It still works. He still got the checkbox of the mitzvah was done. But b'mezid lo hurtza. But if it was done intentionally, then it doesn't work. Then it's not accepted. Says the Gemara, Kitanya hahi. What's this price we're talking about? The yachid. That's the korban of a yachid. That's only for the korban of an individual. That's how Rav Nachman explains. That's not for the tzibur, that's for an individual. Tashma, come in here. Alma hatzitz maratza. How does it work that all of these things, that you have such a thing that the korban is brought in the state of tumah, and yet it's not a problem? Because of the tzitz. The tzitz makes it work. Tashma, Brisa says, Alma hatzitz maratza. How does the tzitz affect ritzui? Meaning, it makes the korban acceptable even though it's in a state of tumah. Al hadam v'al habasa v'al achelev shenitma, on blood and on basar, on flesh of the carbon, al chelev, the fats. Shenitma, that became tamid. Bein b'shaygi, whether it's shaygi, bein b'mezid, or it is intentional. Bein ba'onis, if it is accidental. Bein b'ratzon, or if it was done purposefully. Bein b'yachid, whether it is an individual. Bein b'tzibur, or for the whole, or for a carbon on the tzibur. V'isal kedech tumah heter hi b'tzibur. And if you think that the tumah is mutar b'tzibur, lama li l'ritzah. Why do I need the tzitz to help? If tumah is mutar b'tzibur, then the tzitz isn't needed there. It's mutar. Meaning, you don't need the tzitz to help with ritzui of a carbon that is mutar. It's mutar. It's mutar. It's as if the tumah didn't happen. Rav Nachman says to you, no, when the Brisa says that the tzitz is meratze, ad yachid. No. That's only talking about the yachid. The rest of it is meaning. How do you read this? Al ma tzitz meratze, al adam v'al abasa v'al achelev shenitma ben mishoyik ben mezid ben ba'onis ben rotzen ben b'yachid. But ben b'tzibur is not necessary. It's not necessary for the tzitz. You could also say, I feel a tema b'tzibur. You could even say that the Brisa reads better to say bein b'tzibur b'hanach deloi kviyah lizman. It could be in the korbanos of the tzibur that don't have a specific time. Okay, and we will leave it here at the bottom of Zayin Amud Aleph because the next set of questions are going to be against Rosh Hashanah. We have finished challenging Rav Nachman, and we're going to move on to challenging Rosh Hashanah at the bottom of Zayin Amud Aleph, as Hashem Yisbarach, to be continued tomorrow as we continue with catching up and looking forward, please God, to getting up to speed with the Amud in the next few days and being able to continue learning together. And everybody should have a beautiful day.